Welcome, Sandy Stott.
Thank you. We're a little deeper into the evening than you suspected we'd be, and certainly than I suspected we'd be, so I will be brief. But thank you. My name is Sandy Stott. I am the chair of the Conservation Commission, and thanks for this chance to outline our work and highlight a few aspects of it. At the outset of this year, we decided we'd divide our work on the Commission into three areas: our land responsibilities, runoff, and then watershed work. And clearly these three areas overlap, but in doing this, we hoped that we would have subgroups of commissioners who would be able to investigate each area more deeply and then bring that work back and help us with our advocacy and our work. So first of all, lands. We're responsible for monitoring conservation easements owned by the town on over 800 acres of land. We do that. We have a rotation of monitoring that happens every 3 years. We're also responsible for a number of small parcels owned by the town that are part of the legacy of development projects in the 80s and 90s. And we're responsible for those as well. We also coordinate with Parks and Rec on some work on some of the larger parcels in town, for instance, the Kate Furbish Preserve, which they work on. We also undertake selected projects. So, for instance, for the last 5 years, we have been in combat with a stand of knotweed in the middle of the Fitzgerald Park, and it is the only, to our knowledge, the only stand of knotweed in the Fitzgerald Park, 66 acres. Left on its own, it would take over the park, and it would shade out the blueberry bushes and the habitat for birds. Knotweed is very persistent, as you can tell when you drive along the roadways. So we would never take on all the knotweed in town, but we will take it on in select places where it makes a difference. We also have done work out at the Western Sawtooth parcel adjacent to the runways, both in combat with bittersweet that's trying to take over part of the forest, and also with white pines that are trying to take over part of the sandplain grassland. So that's some of our lands work. We decided to work with runoff as well, and it was a privilege to listen to people tonight speaking about McCoy Bay and the importance of our waters, because all of us live in town, and wherever we live, from that property, water flows toward our bays. And the runoff that it carries has profound effects down there. In particular, we chose to focus on fertilizers and on pesticides, and we hope that part of what we learn will help our advocacy for some adjustments to our ordinances in those areas which are old and out of date. The final thing that we chose to work on really encompasses all of the other work as well. We chose, each of us lives in a watershed. We live with water and by water, and in fact, we are all of us, largely water. A watershed can be seen as the bloodstream of the land. Just as we need to attend to our blood's health, so too we need to attend to our watersheds. A large part of the hope of the towns embracing the Mearbrook Watershed Improvement Project lies in the chance that it will help citizens see that water health and overall health are intimately related. Just before me, there is a large watershed map that Ashley Charlson and Jess Hanscom, who's the GIS person for the town, helped to make, and each of you has a little gift there, which is a small copy of that watershed map. We use this when we speak with groups, and we use it to give people a sense that everyone in this town lives in a watershed. When you look at that map, you'll see, and it's up here on the screen as well, when you look at it, you'll see that there are no roads on the map. But I would propose that each of you has an address on this map. And one of the things that we ask people to do with the map is to find where they live on the map. When you look at the map, you can begin to look and see where the waters come from and where they go. This is also a LiDAR map, and so the contours are evident on it. And of course, contours indicate how water flows and where it goes. And so if you look at this map, the quiz or the gift, well, the map is a gift, but the quiz I'm giving you is simply to say, what's your address on the map? And here's an example of that. If you were to ask me my address, instead of giving you a street address, I could give you a watershed address. So I live in Reach 11 out of 17 reaches in the Muir Brook watershed. And so if you look at Muir Brook and you were to divide it into 17 sections, and that's not evident on this map. Muir Brook is evident on the map, but the 17 sections aren't there. There'd be too much detail. So I live at Reach 11, which is right next to Outfall 19, which is where the stormwater that collects in the neighborhood where I live empties into Muir Brook. And for each person who looks at this map and thinks about this map, it's possible to begin to say, oh, I live in this watershed, or I live in that watershed. And once you know what watershed you live in, then you know where the water that collects in your driveway and runs down to the end of the driveway and runs into the storm drain, you know where that goes. And you know also, if you think about it, that it's carrying signs of all of us. And so that would be a way, I think, I would propose of understanding our citizenship in this town. So that's really, I'll stop at that point, and thank you all for your attention, and also thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about watersheds and some of the work that we do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? Councilor Walker?
More of a comment than a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Chair, sure. Thank you, Mr. Stott, for being here tonight. One of the charges in the Conservation Commission charter, I got to put glasses on because I'm so old, is doing research and presenting policy recommendations over open areas. Open areas include undeveloped blocks, streams, wetlands, tidal marshes, all kinds of wildlife habitats and plant habitats. For years now, back in the day, the Conservation Commission used to be pretty active in terms of promoting updates to zoning ordinances and other town policies regarding natural resources. So I would encourage you to get back into that, especially as we update the comprehensive plan. What we've noted is a lot of the ordinances have not been updated since the early 2000s, specifically things like rural Brunswick smart growth, the undeveloped blocks, streams, I think we last reviewed back in 2004. So there's a lot of ripe ground for the commission to take on, and I would certainly encourage that. I could certainly use the help. Second thing is, I don't know if you've ever appointed a position on rivers and coastal waters. There's always been a vacant position there for Conservation Commission, so I would encourage you to get a member on that because it's a very important active committee. And then lastly, years ago, working with the rec department, we were looking at an exemption for herbicide use by licensed herbicide applicators on town properties, and that sort of disappeared. After 30-some years in the business of tackling invasive species, it's a lot easier to do it right with a licensed applicator using herbicides than by hand. So maybe that knotweed patch wouldn't be such a big deal after all.
Well, the knotweed has had herbicide applied by a licensed applicator twice, and that's been part of the success in working with it.
Councilor Hicks?
Just real quick, is this map on our website, or is this accessible easily?
It should be accessible on the Conservation Commission website, and we have copies of it. Because it was generated by town personnel.
Mm-hmm. Because it's great to be able to zoom in and to see actually
Yes.
where you are. So if it is available online,
Yep.
it could be a good starting point for a lot of people to figure out where they are in the like you said, what's their watershed address?
Yep.
And then, and I have to say, I haven't looked on your webpage, but you do have some links to some resources that look pretty interesting, and I'll go through that, and if I have any questions, I'll follow up with you.
Good.
Thanks.
Counselor Watson?
You referred to the Conservation Committee's website. Is that on the town's website?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.